So you probably heard the saying, follow your passion or do what you love and everything will work out. And I used to think that this was great advice. But the problem was whenever I followed it, right? And the times I tried to follow it, I ended up wasting months, if not years, trying to find my passion. And the reason for that was because I didn't understand what I'm about to share with you in this video. So this saying, follow your passion, when does it usually get brought up? Typically, it's when you're trying to make a decision, you're at like a crossroads, you can take A or B, and you don't know what to do. And people say this as basically sort of they're trying to give you advice and help you out. But a lot of times, it ends up doing more harm than good because, for example, for myself, I didn't know what my passion was. Okay. And so for me, it ended up turning into this stressful process where I'm wondering, like, why can't I find my passion? And I'm spending so much time trying to like figure it all out. And it actually put me in a bad mental state and kind of gave me anxiety because I couldn't figure it out. And so that's the kind of dangerous side of following this advice on the surface level, is because it's not so simple. It's not as simple as that. And now that I'm older, I have a bit more of an understanding of how this kind of works, at least how I think it works and what's worked for me. And so that's why I'm making this video, is because I want to share it with anyone who might be stuck in that place right now. Like if you're you have anxiety, or you might feel like you should know what your passion is, but you don't. And to anyone who hasn't been in that situation, if you watch this video, you can hopefully never have to deal with that feeling, because it's not fun. Okay, so the problem with the saying is, number one, if you think about it, really what passion is it's sort of like this strong emotion, right? It's this strong emotion that's kind of uncontrollable. And this is sort of a temporary state. This isn't something that is like going to be sustainable. It's kind of like happiness, it's a feeling. It comes and it goes. And so when people say this, especially in terms of trying to follow your passion in terms of like a career or making money, it doesn't really make sense, because it's just a feeling. It's just a feeling that we have. And so just based off of that, it doesn't really make sense. The other problem with it is a lot of us don't know what our passion is, right? We don't know what it is right off the bat. There's so many people I know who are like, I don't know really what I'm passionate about. I mean, there are people out there who do know, but especially if you're younger, you don't really know right off the bat what you're passionate about. And that's why people are always like switching majors and trying to figure out like what degree to study and what career field to go into, because you don't really know yet what you're passionate about. And lastly, it assumes that if you did know what your passion is, right? If you actually had a passion that you were serious about and that you knew, that you would only have one. Like, who's to say that you don't have 3 different things you're passionate about, or 4 or 5 or 10? You know what I mean? That you could have an infinite amount of things that you're passionate about. So how are you supposed to pick which one to follow? It doesn't make any sense. Okay, so basically the way that I reframed this for myself, and over time I kind of figured out, was don't follow the advice of follow your passion. Instead, what worked for me was follow your interests. So move from follow your passion to follow your interests. Okay. And if you don't know what that is yet, then instead of find your passion, find your interests. Okay. So it's really key that you reframe this so that you're thinking more about your interests and not about what you're passionate about. And the reason why this works is because if you think about it, almost anybody, especially you watching this video, if I were to ask you, what are you interested in? Okay, there's got to be at least a couple things that you're interested in, right? There's a few things that you like to spend your extra time doing, or books that you like to read, or hobbies that you have. Okay, almost everybody has some sort of interest. So on the flip side of this equation, you might be thinking, okay, well, I don't really have any interest. There's nothing that I'm really particularly interested in which case, I've also been at this point where you don't really know, like, what am I even interested in? And this is the process that I went through to figure that out. And the first thing was to completely remove, or really limit, like severely limit, the amount of high dopamine activities. So for example, if you're like playing video games all the time, porn, watching TV, like taking any sort of like substances, alcohol, all of that is going to cloud your ability to find your interests, and it's also going to make you numb. So by severely limiting that, or getting rid of those things, which you're probably not going to be able to do right to start, but by severely at least limiting those things, it's going to make it much easier for you to actually figure out what your interests are. And the key to this is when you actually lower those high dopamine activities, because your brain is constantly in the state of high dopamine and getting spikes, you're going to go back to baseline and you're going to literally be bored. Like, you want to actually have that feeling of boredom. Because when you have that feeling of boredom, that's what's going to move you into, like, when you're bored, okay, and you're just like sitting around, if there's a video game or what the heck was that? If there's like a video game or something that you can go play, you're going to fill your time with that. But if you don't let yourself do those things, then you have to go find other things to do. You're not just going to like sit there the whole time, right? It doesn't make any sense. You're not just going to sit there and not do anything. So you need to let yourself be bored. And you need to let yourself be bored for at least like days and days on end. And over time, your brain's going to get back to that baseline, and you're going to actually start gravitating towards your interest. You're going to gravitate towards things that you're intrinsically interested in. Okay, but the other thing that you might be thinking is, okay, well, one of my interests right now is video games, right? Like video games is what I'm super interested in. Now, the thing about that is that I think is actual cope, because your brain is literally creating that thought. A part of your brain is creating that thought because it wants you to stay comfortable and it wants you to stay in the zone of the digital world, right? When you're playing a video game or doing any one of these things that I'm talking about, it's high dopamine. Your brain loves that shit, okay? A part of your brain loves having high dopamine. And so it's going to come up with thoughts like, oh, well, this is my interest. Video games are my passion, okay? Now, I'm not saying that's not possible, but at least give this a try. At least give this method that I'm going to put forward a try to see if that's the case. Because if you don't have any other interests outside of video games, I can almost guarantee your passion isn't video games. I was the same way, okay? It sounds kind of counterintuitive, but if you're super interested in video games, it's usually just because it's a high level of dopamine or you're not actually bored enough to find other things to do. It's just kind of the next easiest thing to do that gives your brain a huge dopamine hit. And so when you cut that out, or at least severely limit it, like even going from a full week, if you just go from like playing every single day just down to 3 or 4 days, that's going to make a huge difference. That's going to give you a ton of time that you can actually explore other interests. Because even if you are passionate about video games, okay, you can say, that's fine, whatever. But if you don't have any other interests outside video games, that's not a good life, right? Like I was super interested in I was fucking addicted to video games, but I didn't have anything going on outside. Like my life was literally just video games. And is that like a life you want to live? I mean, that doesn't seem like a good life in my opinion. So if you don't have other interests outside of those high dopamine activities, you need to lower them down. You need to cut them way down, let yourself be bored, and then you can actually start to figure out other things that you're interested in. The other thing that happens is when you're bored and you've kind of cut down like that level of dopamine back down to your baseline, is you start to notice your pain. And when I say pain, I'm like referring to areas in your life that need improvement, areas of your life that you're not happy with. So maybe, for example, you have like a job that you really hate, right? You have a job that you really hate, but the rest of your time is filled up with high dopamine activities. And so what happens is, since the rest of your free time is filled up with high dopamine activities, you aren't actually going to feel the problems in your life, right? You're not going to feel the problems. You're going to come home, and most people do this, right? I did this, and most people do this, and that's how you stay in this sort of cycle forever and ever, and you never break out. So you come home from the shit job that you hate, and you just spend the rest of the night playing video games, and you do that every single day. Okay. Well, the problem with that is you're not feeling the pain in your life. And so when you don't feel the pain, you're not going to do anything. And for myself, I notice a lot of times my interests, what I'm interested in, like I'll have hobbies and stuff here and there, right? But really what I'm interested in a lot of times revolves around the problems I have. So for example, like a year or so ago, was it? Yeah, a little over a year. I was out of shape. I was really out of shape. And for me, I was out of shape. I had a pretty high body fat percentage. And so I wanted to get in shape. And so what did I do? By not spending all the time on video games, watching TV, drinking, and all this stuff, I was able to focus a lot of attention on that problem. And I got really interested in fitness. I got really interested in learning about different exercises, different moves that you can do, especially like in like calisthenics and stuff. I've been getting more interested in that, and even diving deeper into other aspects of health that I never used to be interested in. So you kind of end up going down like this rabbit hole effect. There's like this rabbit hole effect of other interests that you start to find. And so if you are constantly filling your time up with these high dopamine activities that aren't good, then essentially you're not letting yourself be bored, so you can't naturally gravitate towards your interests. And 2, you're not feeling the pain. And so any issues in your life that are there that you could, start to build an interest around, you don't, because you don't feel the pain. And so that's why it's so crucial. I'm not saying you have to completely give up video games, but like, bro, if you're on Steam, okay, how you're on Steam and you've got the fucking thing that tells you how many hours per week that you've been playing, and it says like 40 hours per week, cut that down to 20. Like just try to cut it down to 20. Just try to do half. Try to do half. And that goes for anything, whether you're doing alcohol, anything, just cut it down to like half. And that will give you so much more ability to find your natural interests. And that's really the main thing. That's the main thing for me is I was filling all my times with all these other activities and not letting myself feel the pain of things that need to be improved in my life, and not allowing myself to gravitate towards my natural interests. The other thing to this too is once you actually give yourself some time and you create some space, what you need to do is go out there and get more experiences, right? The more experiences you have, the more like different hobbies you have, different like jobs that you try, even different like career paths, that all will give you a wealth of experience, which is going to kind of let you know what you're interested in, what you hate doing, what you like, what you enjoy doing every day. And that really helps trying to figure out your interests. And with those experiences, as you're getting them, if you ever see like one thing that you do that you were kind of interested in could lead on to like a major interest. It's like this weird like network effect where like you do one thing and then it leads on to something else that you totally weren't expecting. And so if you ever have that feeling where you're like, I think I might be interested in this, but it's like not like a super strong feeling, just try it. Just go out there and try it, because you never know that you could end up really be interested in that, and that ends up being one of your main interests. Okay, so circling back to this whole passion thing and how to find your passion and all this, one thing I've noticed that's really interesting is when I follow my intrinsic interests, okay, the things that I'm truly interested in, like regardless of like money or anything like that, I'm actually really interested in these kind of things. What happens is I get good at them by spending time studying, reading, actually doing the thing and getting the experience, right, and the knowledge. And when that happens, then I get more passionate about it. So it's weird because if you try to do the whole thing where you're trying to find your passion first, it doesn't really work. But if you follow your interests first, then you almost develop a passion for it over time. And this actually makes sense if you think about it, because when you get a reward, your brain actually puts out signals in the form of like chemicals and hormones that actually make you feel a certain way. So when you get really good at something that's like a real interest of yours, and you get really good at it, that's a reward, because I don't know, maybe like it's something where you're making money or you're building something, or it's just a skill that you've mastered. You have a reward now, a reward circuit in your brain that's like, yeah, we like this. And so it releases those chemicals that actually make you feel passionate and happy doing the thing. So right now, from my experiences and my whole perspective shows that your passion isn't found. It's cultivated. So your passion isn't just out there like floating around in the universe and you just like stumble on it, or it just drops like onto you out of like thin air. It's something that is like developed and cultivated over time by following your intrinsic interests, actually getting good at something, like actually becoming proficient at a skill or whatever your interest is. It doesn't matter. That's when you get good at it and you start to get that reward, that's when you start to get those feelings of passion. And even then, like we discussed earlier in the video, it's a temporary feeling. It's not like every day you're going to be fucking feeling passionate. There's going to be days where, maybe you're not even interested at all in it. But this is what really changed the thing for me, was to follow my true interests. And from there, by getting good at them, developing the passion. And again, if you don't know what your interests are, the main thing that was holding me back was, one, not feeling the problems. So problems are a great indication of where you're going to be interested, right? Because you want to solve those problems. So you got to spend time learning and researching and actually doing shit. So that's the first thing that will tell you or give you like a good idea of your interests. And then the second thing is actually letting yourself be bored and sort of gravitate towards what you like. That's like the whole thing. And so I just wanted to share that because that was a huge breakthrough that happened for me. And so this whole thing of follow your passion, find your passion, it's not that passion isn't real or doesn't exist. It's just that in order to access it, in order to really get that feeling, which again is temporary, I think that you need to actually follow your true interests and get proficient at them. Because now, so I'm in the gym, right? I'm in the gym right now. I used to be interested because I wanted to get more in shape and get healthier. But now when I'm in there, I actually enjoy, and I sometimes get like these dopamine hits from just being in there and just exercising. And that's because I've gotten good at it. And I followed my true interest. So, that's what I think you should do. at least give it a try and just see if it works for you. Like there's nothing if you're in a position right now where you're, you know, struggling and you're having that feeling of anxiety because you can't find the thing, can't hurt to try this, right? Can't hurt to try this method, because what else are you going to do? Don't click off this video and just go watch 10 more videos about the same subject. Just take what I told you, try to actually apply it. And it's not going to be mainstream advice, okay? This isn't mainstream advice because you're not going to like the whole thing about having to make yourself feel bored, cut things out. You're not going to want to do any of that, okay? Your brain is going to literally resist that. It is going to rebel as hard as it can against that. But I'm telling you, if you do it, okay, in almost all likelihood, you will start gravitating towards your interests. You'll start gravitating towards fixing the problems in your life, and everything will be better. So that's all I want to say. Thank you for watching this. And if you're interested in more of this type of content, then be sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.